Happy New Year, everyone. People around the world ring in 2019. Thousands turning out on the Champs-Élysées in Paris to celebrate. The French President Emmanuel Macron, though, telling the French in his New Year's speech that anti-government protests won't keep him from pushing through his economic agenda. A warning to the U.S. from Korean leader Kim Jong-un in his New Year's speech. He says he's getting frustrated with the lack of progress since he met with Donald Trump last year, telling Washington not to test the North's patience with sanctions and pressure over the nuclear issue. And this first day of 2019, bringing in a new president for Brazil. Far-right politician Jair Bolsonaro will be sworn in tonight, marking an end to decades of center-left rule. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us here on France 24 this hour. Well, the annual New Year's celebrations here in France had a tinge of yellow last night as anti-government protesters mingled with revelers on the Champs-Élysées. The so-called Yellow Vest movement had called for festive demonstrations on Paris's famous avenue, a stark contrast to the violence that rocked Paris over the past few weeks. But the protesters rang in 2019 with a promise their movement will continue. The Yellow Vest demonstrators capped off what's already been a difficult year for the French president, Emmanuel Macron. Alison Sargent has more.
Emmanuel Macron didn't mention the Yellow Vests in his New Year's address, but he did talk about anger, taking a more combative tone than in his last televised address in December, when he responded to the movement's demands. This time, Macron didn't hold back from criticizing the violence seen at some protests, which have been going on for over a month.
Some people use the pretext of speaking on behalf of the people. Really, they are nothing but a megaphone for an angry mob, railing against elected representatives, the police, journalists, Jews, foreigners, homosexuals. That, quite simply, is the negation of France. The order of the Republic will be ensured without fail.
The French president said he'll soon announce the details of a national debate to take place in France through March. Political opponents were quick to respond to the president's New Year's wishes. Far-left Jean-Luc Mélenchon accused him of being patronizing, while far-right Marine Le Pen called him an imposter. Still manning their roadblocks, some Yellow Vest protesters said they didn't bother watching the president's speech. Did you listen?
Not at all. We listened for the past year. That's enough.
Those that did tune in were unimpressed.
We
don't expect anything from him. He didn't add anything to what he already said mid-December.
He's enthralled by money, by the rich, but his speech was worth absolutely nothing.
Despite his plunging popularity, Emmanuel Macron has vowed to push forward with his reforms, keeping him on a collision course with the Yellow Vests, who have also resolved to continue their movement into the new year.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un made his New Year's address as well last night, where he focused on the nuclear talks that have been on standby since his historic meeting with Donald Trump last June. But progress has since stalled, with Pyongyang and Washington arguing over just what that means. Well, speaking Monday, the North Korean leader said he wants to have good relations with the U.S., but that he could change tacks if Washington keeps up its sanctions.
Starting off 2019 with a warning. In his New Year's address, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said that he is ready to meet with President Trump again at any time, but also threatened to take another path.
If the United States continues to break its promises and misjudges our patience by unilaterally demanding certain things and pushes ahead with sanctions and pressure against our republic, then we may have to seek another way to protect our country's sovereignty and interest and establish peace and stability on the Korean peninsula.
It was last year's address that kicked off a year of easing tensions. 3 meetings with the South Korean President Moon Jae-in, and a historic summit with U.S. President Donald Trump, at which the two leaders signed a vague agreement toward denuclearization. Since then, the North has become frustrated that the U.S. hasn't lifted sanctions, even after North Korea took initial steps, halting its missile tests and blowing up nuclear test sites. But the U.S. is waiting to lift its sanctions until it confirms that North Korea's denuclearization is full and final. Satellite images have suggested ongoing activity at the North's nuclear and weapons facilities. The U.S. has made some concessions, suspending joint military drills with South Korea. With his demands, Kim did say that the North would cease producing, testing, and spreading its nuclear arsenal. Ultimately, a second U.S.-North Korea meeting could be in the cards for 2019. Just over a week ago, Donald Trump tweeted that he is looking forward to his next summit with Kim. The North Korean leader also has agreed to make his first ever visit to the South Korean capital, expected to take place this year.
To Brazil now, where the new year means a new president. That's far-right leader Jair Bolsonaro, who's being sworn in later today. The former army captain is hoping to break with decades of centrist rule, tainted with corruption, a failing economy, and widespread crime. But critics have slammed the man, dubbed Brazil's Donald Trump, for his extremist language against gays, women, and minorities. Our Rio correspondent, Lucinda Elliott, told us more about the inauguration tonight.
Security ahead of the event has been unprecedented. We've had fighter jets deployed to the sky and also over 3,000 civil and military police that will be guarding today's events. They're expecting as many as 300,000 people to make their way to watch the historic ceremony. What we'll have today is a series of events that includes a move from the cathedral in Brasilia through a parade, which is normally in an open-top Rolls-Royce car, make its way to the presidential palace, where then, after a congressional session, Bolsonaro will come out to give a historic address to the nation.
Jair Bolsonaro has been busy assembling his cabinet ever since his election last October. The far-right leader has now chosen a mix of neoliberals, conservatives, and several ministers with a strong military past. Catherine Viette takes a look.
Keeping his promise to downsize the presidential cabinet, Jair Bolsonaro has appointed 22 ministers, 7 less than the previous government. As chief of staff, Onyx Lorenzoni, the former federal congressman, was tapped to coordinate Bolsonaro's transition team. To revive a stalled economy, the president-elect has picked as chief economic advisor Paulo Guedes. A proponent of free market capitalism, the University of Chicago alum will be the new finance minister. He's betting on a vast privatization plan. A key campaign promise of Bolsonaro's to end government corruption. To do that, he's named Judge Sergio Moro to head up his justice superministry. The celebrated anti-graft judge led the car wash investigation that led to former President Lula's imprisonment. The ultra-right leader has made no secret of his fondness for the former military dictatorship that ruled Brazil. So it's no surprise that Bolsonaro has appointed 7 former members of the military. Among them, 3 generals have been given key portfolios, including defense and the cabinet which coordinates the country's intelligence services. Lawyer Ricardo Salles will head up the Environment Ministry, a blow for green activists who say he's too closely aligned with the agribusiness lobby. And the ultra-conservatives have not been left out. Evangelical pastor and anti-abortion advocate Damaris Alves will lead the newly created Women, Family, and Human Rights Ministry. Alves is only the 2nd woman in an otherwise predominantly white male cabinet.
And finally, NASA celebrated the new year with a trip to the outermost region of the solar system. Its unmanned New Horizons mission has now gone far beyond Pluto in the quest for clues onto just how the solar system was formed. And today, it's got its sights on a tiny, extremely distant world. That icy cosmic rock, nicknamed Ultima, is 4 billion miles from Earth. It's a relic from the early days of our solar system, and New Horizons is taking its picture, a picture that could help scientists understand a bit more about the origin of other planets. Here's more from one of the scientists who worked on the historic flyby.
This is space history. No object has been explored up close this far from Earth. What happens next is the data will start to come back. We'll see tomorrow, 20 months for data from Ultima to ultimately reach Earth, and for the entire package, for the science team to begin looking over just this treasure trove of information, of data, in what is literally an archaeological dig into the beginnings of the solar system. These are objects that have been literally untouched, believed to be unaffected since they were formed in this outside region of the solar system.
2019 getting off to a good start for NASA. Thanks so much for watching France 24. Stay with us. I'll be back in about 20 minutes with more headlines.